Siddharth, tell me about Shivanti Nainan, her piece on the Ambanis 3-4 days before they made the deal. You didn't run it.
When I read about Shivanti saying that her piece was spiked, etc., etc., it wasn't my call, but I was certainly curious to know what happened. How did this happen? And to the best of my knowledge, it had nothing to do with the contents. Because if you read the piece, it's a descriptive piece about a business deal that was in the public domain. And you know, the long and short of it is that the piece didn't run because Mr. Ram did not have time to read and vet and clear the piece as he does each week. And for that reason, it got held back, and I think she got upset, and she said the piece was spiked for some, you know, if you read the piece, there's nothing in that piece that is sensitive or that anybody would want to.
So you could have run it later?
If she were to submit that piece or a rework piece to me today, I would have absolutely no hesitation running it. I cannot say it in clearer terms, that there is nothing in that piece that the Hindu would not want to publish. And you know, decisions get taken, you know, unfortunately when you run,
I understand.
You know,
but then when it's interpreted personally,
it shouldn't have been. And but you know, as I said, you know, Shivanti, that was her perception, and maybe things were not communicated to her properly. You know, so I'm not blaming her, quite frankly. But
obviously they weren't communicated to her if she came to that conclusion.
And what I, through your site, would assure readers is that there is no such thing. You just have to read the paper, right? There is no major corporate house against whom stories are not published in Hindu. Of course, the corporate house has its point of view, let's say, whether it's Anil Ambani or Mukesh Ambani, but we have been running hard-hitting stories that you don't see in other papers. So the idea that we would spike a piece because it concerns a corporate house or is about the media, I mean, we are pretty much the only paper, other than Mint, that has a full-time media, maybe Business Standard, that has a full-time media correspondent that writes about what's happening in the media business.
Now, I think today, Hindu's sitting on a gold mine, the Wikileaks. So in the next week, I think we're going to expect some juicy stuff from.
You know,
do you have?
I don't want to build
30, 40 people sifting through everything.
I don't
search.
I don't want to build expectations too high on this, quite frankly, because unlike the earlier sets of documents that we got, you know, this treasure trove is rather more problematic, right? Because it consists of private emails of a private consulting firm, the bulk of which is not, you know, highlighting that is not. There's no compelling public interest in bringing it into the public domain. So we, the one story that we've already reported has to do with Dow Chemicals, sort of stalking of activists, as it were, and using private consulting firms to gather information. So that was one very obvious story. You know, we're still sifting through to see what other material there may be. For example, the one that caused such a storm, where this American diplomat talks to Nachiketa about the cash. Now there, it wasn't just this young lad, Nachiketa, boasting about money, right? He actually, the cable says that he was shown trunks of cash, right? So I don't think on a sensitive subject like this, on a topic which the US system was so heavily invested, which is the nuclear deal, a senior diplomat would fabricate that kind of information, right? And it was very clear, but he wasn't just saying XYZ told me he has cash. He reports seeing these trunks of cash, right? So that immediately marks it as a very, very different kind of cable.
I thought I read that he said he was going to show them, but never
No,
actually
he saw them. You know, so that gives it a different dimension, and I think it's something that you know, should have been investigated more seriously. Of course, the government of the day is not going to do that because they were the ones implicated in that whole scandal. But you know, so you know, these things have to be taken in context and understood as the writings and analysis of US diplomats. Now, in the case of the Stratfor, the reason they're not so interesting is because why should we pay any attention to the assessment of a analyst sitting somewhere in Texas who works for a private consulting firm, right?
And
so
now names are flying all over
well,
the net.
I
mean, just because somebody receives an email from them,
I think there's a lot of.
He's already branded.
I was on Twitter last night and found a lot of irresponsible posts being put up, naming XYZ. You know, I think this is completely uncalled for. The kind of files that I have seen, including some of these names, there's nothing, you know, absolutely nothing, which any of these people, you know, are connected to that would even vaguely smack of wrongdoing or unethical. You know, so I'm saying, so there's no news in that. And I'm surprised that people picking up on random names, you receive an email, so what? Somebody writes to you saying, will you, we don't even know what the email pitch was, quite frankly, because there's nothing in those files. So just because a name pops up, for people to speculate, I think is the heights of a responsibility. And today we clarified to our readers, and I can assure you through your website that the Hindu will certainly not be party to the casual reporting of names that figure. For us, the yardstick of using anything in what is ultimately private correspondence is if there's compelling public interest, which means there has to be evidence of wrongdoing by a government or a company, or evidence of unethical behavior or practices. If the files and the emails do not meet that test, you will not be reading about them in the Hindu.